Hey my tech friends, thanks for stopping by. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's continue to grow this channel. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Hey guys, welcome back to another homebrew video. So in this particular video, I figured we'd take a look at Windows 11's Ghost Spectre or Ghost Scepter version. This is specifically marketed as something called Rectify 11. Not 100% sure, don't have too much background on this particular operating system. I know that this appears to be created by the same people who created that Ghost 10 or the Rectify 10 or Ghost Spectre 10. So many different names, all appear to be the same type of product. However, this one's just as visually stimulating when you first get into the Windows installation process. So let's continue on through the installation process and see if there's any changes between this and the previous Ghost version. Again, I'll probably just refer to this thing as Ghost 11 through the video just because of the difference in the variables in the name. But as special as the Ghost 10 version was, I expect this version to be similar. So let's continue on through the process and see what we get. Okay, so we're just going to click on Next. So this is slightly different because the other one didn't ask for a product key, whereas this one does. I'm just going to click on I don't have a product key, and we can install this thing as a, I guess it's a 3-day trial or whatever, and go from there. I'm going to choose the whole hard drive, click Next. Well, went through the installation process. Now we're getting to the point where we're booting back up into Windows. Oh, that's different. So that's interesting. I don't even know what to make of that. Something's up with the display drivers, I'm assuming, on this particular slimmed down version of Windows. Let's do a reboot on this thing. I'm just going to hard boot it and see if it comes back up and doesn't look quite as funky. The craziest thing is when you move the mouse, up is left and right on an angle, and right goes... It thinks it's a split screen on a something's really whacked out. So give me a second here. I'm just going to reboot the system. Let's see if it fixes itself once it comes back up. Okay, so we're booting back up again. Let's see if this time it looks a little less bizarre. I don't think so. I think we're going to have the same problem again. Yeah, we have the same problem again. Let's see if we adjust our graphics display adapter properties in VMware and see if this fixes this. Bear with me for a second here. Okay, so we're booting again. I did get an alert. Nah, we got the same problem again, or at least that's the way it looks. Well, let's see if I could figure out how to install VMware tools on this particular system. With any luck, maybe I could get the tool set installed so that way the system will actually correctly render the display. So I did pop the disk in the tray, or the ISO file, to load. However, I don't see anything popping up. It could be popping up somewhere else, maybe over here that I just can't see it. Bear with me for a few here. Let's see if I could actually fix this. You know, this might be entertaining, so I'm just going to leave this in here. I may cut this out of the video. We'll see. Dude, this is trippy. Okay. It's almost as if I'm looking at it, as if I'm looking down at it on like a surface type of scenario. Again, I don't blame this on the developer. Again, you know, we're running things in a VM, so VMware doesn't necessarily mean, you know, oh, thank God, there we go, we're fixed. All right, so let's reboot this thing. We'll get back into it. We'll kick off the video. Okay, we're booting back up. That looks much better. All right, so we now are in Windows 11. This is 23H2. This is the Ghost Edition or Rectify 11. And I will say that there is a startup sound. So you know how I feel about startup sounds. I'm super happy and excited now that I have a startup sound with my Windows operating system to get in here. And it's actually pleasing. The OS itself, I mean, the start menu is in the right location, so they fixed that on this version of the operating system. We still have our shortcut to our Chrome. Well, Chromium is installed, other than just Chrome. File Explorer, we have the Windows Store. The start menu looks pretty much the same. I noticed that we don't have the theme quite the same as we did in the Windows 10 version, which, love it or hate it, I actually enjoyed the theme in the Windows 10 version more than I like the Windows 11 version. But that said, this is pretty smooth. Let's see how actual big it is installed. Well, it's not that bad. Or maybe more like 11.7 gigs installed. So that's not terrible. So yeah, so 11.7 gigs installed is good, because you got to take into consideration that 23H2 on its own is 26 gigs in size. So we're less than half of the actual full operating system build from Microsoft if you were to just get the ISO file and run all the updates. Let's take a look and see specifically what we have as far as updates are concerned. You see, this is listed as 23H2, but it's not. It's 21H2 for Windows 11 Pro. So it's the actual release edition. And again, I don't blame the developers for this. People put these things on different websites to download. I grabbed it off of a website that was just, I think it was ZipShare or ZippyShare, something like that. It's not, it's not a legit location to download it. So you can't blame the devs because the version that I got downloaded was 21H2. So from a build perspective, I mean, I could say right now that this looks more packaged, looks more built, looks more ready, and I'm just going based off of the looks. I'm not going based off of anything else. However, it is bigger and it's not as updated as the Tiny 11 beta edition that we previously looked at. So let's continue on through the process of this thing and take a look specifically at our firewall roles. And see if there's anything weird installed on it, and then we'll run a tenable scan on it and take a look at it. Okay, so typically with Windows 11, the first thing I'll do is pin the command prompt to the actual taskbar, so that way I can right-click on it from here and just do Run as Administrator. And then at that point, I'll go into the control panel. So we do have some theme changes here, obviously, where things look a little more polished in the control panel itself, where the icons aren't as bizarre as they are in like the typical Windows 11 build. Let's take a look first at programs to see if there's anything weird installed on here. So, I mean, based off of our initial look here, specifically all we have really is we have Chromium, which, I mean, great. And we have MS Edge Redirect. And what that is it's a plugin. It's available on GitHub. You could grab it, download, put it on your own Windows 11 machine if you really wanted to. But basically what it does is it redirects everything that would default open in Microsoft Edge to your default browser. So that way you don't have Microsoft Edge opening for random things that are tied in the registry. It's actually a really great product and super helpful. I'll see if I can find the link directly to it and put that down in the description. So then the last thing, obviously, is the Explorer Patcher. And while it's possible to do this without this patcher, you could modify the registry to change it. But basically what this does is it changes your functions, your menu features, to make it mimic Windows 10. And while as a person that's an individual building a custom system, I would tell you to use the registry key. On something that's built as a package, I would tell you to use the Explorer Patcher. And the reason why is because the individual who built this, or the team that built this operating system, in order to maintain it, I mean, typically if you use the Explorer Patcher, you use something that's created by somebody else in like the Git directory, there'll be updates available that you can just update it without having to change the registry. Because who knows, if we roll this thing up to 23H2, we don't know if we're going to cause it to brick. We're not sure if it'll break something, but from an application installation, generally it'll retain the configurations. Where if you make registry changes, sometimes when you do the updates, they rewrite the registry changes that you have in place, And obviously that'll cause the issue, so it'll revert back to the original menu system, which nobody wants. Okay, so that's basically what we got here. The rest of the stuff that's me, obviously, installing it. I mean, if you rewind, we had no choice because of the visualization. The Ultra UX theme patcher, that's clearly the themes that we have in here with the bigger icons and whatnot. Honestly, I still think the 1 in 10 look better, but again, that's just personal preference. Let's take a look and see if there's any features either removed or added to the system through the turn Windows features on or off option. Okay, so from what I can see in here, everything looks pretty much standard. I don't see anything weird or bizarre, modified or added or reconfigured. It's nice to see that we don't have SMB1 turned on. Everything looks pretty much out of the box standard for your typical Windows features. So I'd say that's a good sign. Now let's take a look and go back and specifically take a look at our Windows firewall configuration on the system. So it looks like we have our firewall turned on, and obviously we're not connected to anything because we don't have an IP address set to this thing or a network adapter connected, because once again, on our homeroom machines, when we initially do the assessment, we're going to do it offline. Now, as far as our firewall configuration in our apps and features, there's really nothing in here that's not out of the box configured. This is all pretty standard stuff. I don't see anything, well, with the exception of the Rise Media Player, but if we look down here, the Rise Media Player is actually installed. I don't see anything else on here that looks out of the norm for a Windows 11 configuration, with the exception of Windows IE AC 001. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that this particular service is vindictive. Specifically what this is it's actually a containerization to allow the operating system to more securely process temporary files, so that way they don't infect the machine. Generally, this isn't installed by default, but the fact that it is installed on this particular operating system shows me that the people who have created or developed this have really taken additional steps into trying to secure the operating system for the user to use. So let's close out of here, and at this point I would say let's take a look at the actual Nessus scanner. So we'll get a static IP address on the system, and we'll scan the system on the Nessus scanner to see specifically what comes back. Now keep in mind, this is an older build version, so it's likely that we will have a variable in our output as far as what we see from a security standpoint, because in the 23H2 we already know that there's an additional bug that has been re-released into the Windows 11 operating system. So let's scan this thing and see what it looks like when the scan finishes. Hey guys, so welcome back. So I finished running the scan on our Ghost 11 system, or Rectify 11, or whatever the heck anybody wants to call it. And I gotta be honest with you, not all machines are created equal, I guess. So the Rectify 10, or the Ghost 10 system that we previously ran scans on, came back clean with no real issues found. However, the Rectify 11 machine doesn't fit the same standard, I guess, or configuration. And unfortunately, I found a high-level CVE report specifically in the system for remote code execution through a remote API that's punched through somewhere in that firewall configuration. Chances are it is renamed or changed, and I couldn't tell you specifically why it is, or if it's, again, done on purpose, or maybe there's a piece of code that was used for one of the customizations in this thing that contains this morphed or modified code which allows remote API connection. But at any rate, let's take a look at that. So we're going to just jump directly into it, and we're going to see that we do have our single medium and we have our 63 infos on this particular system. Now keep in mind, once we patch the system, bring it to 23H2, we would get our one medium again for our SMB configuration, as well as the additional info configurations. The interesting thing about the one medium on this particular machine is it matches the other systems. However, the revision, the UUID is different, so that's a thing. There are 25 vulnerabilities that are reported on this particular machines that are things that should be looked into with multiple issues, as well as the SMB not signing, but we know that from the previous system. The important thing to keep in mind on this particular system is specifically here. We have a firewall rule that is listening on port TCP 49672 and is specifically a remote forward for API connections. So this specific issue that's coming through on our firewall configuration is in regard to this particular CVE report. Specifically, we're missing critical patches. And you can see in here that the particular patches to fix this predate the actual operating system itself. So we actually have CVE reports in here for security patches that shouldn't exist in this particular operating system. But for whatever reason, we have the same remote code execution API installed on this machine that would have been something from a previous configuration or a previous operating system. When we dig down deeper into the CVE report itself on the NIST website, we could see, if we look through all of the configuration here, that this should have been patched in 1607 of Windows 10. So this is definitely something that somebody physically installed on this machine that caused this. Again, it's possible that in the later version, the later revision, that this is fixed. However, being the fact that it exists in this particular version, I would suggest not using this particular version. I will continue to look to see if I could find the 23H2 build version of this Ghost operating system so we can run another scan on that system and see if this issue goes away. Because it's quite possible that it's patched in the later version, because again, we're talking not only the operating system patches, but we're also talking the patches that have to do with the third-party applications installed. So I doubt that this is something that the developer put in place. And the reason why I say that is because we looked at Ghost 10, and Ghost 10's clean. That's a secure, strong operating system. That's a good system to use. And I would hate to think that they would decide, well, you know, we built this fantastic operating system for all these different revisions. Let's now release this updated version and then screw everybody. And I just don't see that as being the case for these particular developers. So where does that leave us with this OS? To be honest with you, I would probably avoid this particular version because of what we found. Let's take a look and see if we can find the 23H2 version, like a legit 23H2 version, so that way we could test that system to see if these issues are resolved in that particular system. However, this particular one that's currently running, I think it was 21H1 or 21H2 of Windows 11 Pro, I would probably avoid this system. I'll still put the link in the description, but I would be cautious if you're going to actually run this particular version. Thanks, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Okay, guys, so generally speaking, at this point, we would have ended this video. And the truth is that those of you guys who've been subscribers now for over the month or so, you know that I'm not going to carry on the video and create a part 2 and go through the configuration. But on this particular system, it's actually really easy to fix this issue. So I figure for the sake of this video, I would just create a script to modify some registry keys. And then once we get the registry key modification completed, we can run another Nessus scan against the system to see what it comes back as. Now, keep in mind, the issue that we have currently on here shouldn't exist on this version of Windows. Specifically, what I'm talking about is a SMB vulnerability that used to exist. And I believe the company that found it was the company that uses the Metasploit application to actually do the ethical hacker scanning on the infrastructures and the systems. But specifically, it's part of the WannaCry, or the Emotet, I think is the other variable name. It's also been called Eternal Romance and Not PETA. There's something else called Bad Rabbit, and then I think the last one was called the TrickBot. And they're all part of an exploit system used by hackers to access SMB vulnerabilities. These things are really the campaigning of the precursors to ransomware. Specifically, Bad Rabbit was actually considered ransomware, part of the WannaCry whole configuration. And again, I'm not entirely sure why this exists on our Windows 11 machine, since it shouldn't. But in order for us to patch this, because there is no patch for Windows 11 for these variables that existed in 2017 and 2018, we're going to have to registry hack the system to actually patch the issue. So specifically to do this, it's really simple. And again, created, oh, I forgot. So this particular system, for whatever reason, doesn't have Notepad on it. I don't know why, but that's not an installed application on the Rectify 11 machine here. So I can't edit this to show you the actual contents, but I'll put the contents down in the description after we run the scan to make sure it actually fixes the issue. But specifically, all you have to do is just right-click on the thing and hit Run as Administrator, and it will rewrite the registry keys to patch those issues from the WannaCry ransomware and the exploits that were found in the SMB configuration. Once we run that, we reboot the system and we run a scan on it, I'm almost 100% confident that this thing will show that, it comes back clean. But yeah, stick around. Well, let's see if we can fix this real quick. Okay, guys, so back on the Tenable scanner. So when we left this off, we were in the Ghost 11 configuration here, and we had a medium, and specifically drilling down to it, the SMB not signed requirement, which is part of that Metasploit issue. Again, this is not the same as the one on the later versions of Windows 11, but there is a similar patch for that. And I'll create a video on how to fix Windows 11's new updated 2017 security flaw reintroduced. I'm not really sure why the heck that exists in Windows 11 at this point, but at any rate, to fix this, we ran that script on that Windows 11 machine, we rebooted it, and we ran another scan on that Windows 11 machine. And if we drill down into that now, we see that we have no vulnerabilities, no mediums. It's all info-based, which means we fixed the actual operating system. I'll throw into the description the actual registry keys you got to modify. If you just save them as a .bat file and run them as admin, they'll fix the problem that exists inside this operating system. Hopefully you guys found this useful. Sorry this video kind of carried on for further than we initially configured. I just figured since this was a simple fix, I could provide you guys the fix so you don't have to go digging to try to fix the operating system. We could also take a look still at the 23H2 version if I could find the ISO file somewhere. Again, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. You guys take it easy.